So besides kangaroos and Vegemite, what else is different between the US and Australia? In the few days that I have been here, I've already observed some of the things that I want to bring to your attention. So if anybody's thinking about coming to this amazing country of Australia, then you are at least aware of some of these things that personally I didn't know about. So as many of you know, the US and Australia share a common language, cultural interest, and they're both large geographical areas, and they have a lot of things in common. But they're also quite different. So let's start a little bit with healthcare and education. The healthcare system in both the US and Australia is quite different. In Australia, they have universal healthcare, and in the United States, we do not. Another thing I find interesting is that the public schools in Australia require their students to wear a uniform, something that is not really the case in the US. You have that in private schools, some private schools, I should say, in the US, but not really in public schools. My understanding is to reduce bullying. So all the kids are dressed the same, so you don't have to worry about, this kid wearing, different shoes and getting, dissed or made fun of or anything like that. The work-to-life balance is another crucial aspect. Unlike the often demanding American work culture, Australia tends to offer more vacation days and encourages life outside of the office. So they get about 4 weeks paid off a year, but it's not uncommon to have Aussies that take 5 to 6 weeks of vacation a year. So that alone is a very attractive feature to many families who are thinking about moving here. So a lot of Americans have been moving in Australia, and I think part of it is because of this leave that in the US we just don't have. Parental leave in Australia is about 20 weeks, and you can request an additional 12 weeks, something that we don't have in the United States. American workers are entitled to 12 weeks of unpaid vacation, and it's done through the FMLA, which is the Family Medical Leave Act. But there's no federal law for paid vacations. And the state laws and generally your employer would decide whether or not you get some time off. So if you work in a place like McDonald's, you may not even be entitled to that. And who wants to take unpaid leave anyway, right? I mean, the whole attractive thing about vacations is that you can get out of your office and still get paid. But what happens if you take time off and you don't get paid? How are you going to pay your bills? Many people are living from one paycheck to the next in the US. So this idea of taking unpaid leave is just not attractive at all. So therefore, many Americans actually don't take vacation, or very little. So one thing I have to mention is that, and I have to admit, this is something that I actually learned when I started doing research about coming to Australia. I always assumed that Sydney was the capital of Australia, but it's not. So Sydney is the most populous city in Australia, definitely the biggest, but it is not the capital of the country. And I have to admit that I also thought that Sydney was the capital of Australia. So many of you watching this video, I'm sure, think that Sydney is the capital of this country, but it's not. The capital of Australia is Canberra. Canberra is the capital. When it comes to the government, both the US and Australia are similar in the sense that they are both federal systems. They have a federal government and local government, state governments, right? However, the US is a republic and Australia is a constitutional monarchy. What does that mean? The US president is both the head of state and the head of the government, and he's directly elected by the American people. Whereas in Australia, the head of state is actually the British monarchy. So in this case, it will be King Charles, right? The British monarch is actually the head of the state. And the head of the government in Australia is the Prime Minister. Okay, so those are, some of the differences. And that Prime Minister is not elected directly by the people. Instead, he's chosen by elected members of the parliament. So in the House of Representatives, the party that has the majority will actually select who the prime minister is. So that's how it works. Very similar to the British system. One thing that I think a lot of people will be interested in, and I want to explore this by talking to actual Australian people, is in regards to gun rights. In the US, your gun rights are protected by the Second Amendment. And in Australia, there's no such thing anymore. They changed the laws, and basically most Australians don't have the right to bear arms. I don't know if there are any exceptions, but guns are not really a thing in this country. Safety is a major issue, and they have decided to completely take away the guns. And today, Australia is one of the safest countries in the world. So safety is a big thing here. So there's extremely low crime rate, and as a result, it makes Australia a very attractive place for people to live, to visit. And many Americans are actually moving from the United States to Australia. I don't know if I already mentioned that. Another difference that I have noticed here in my time talking to people, Australians are far less religious than people in the United States. Statistically speaking, the most recent Australian census showed that 43% of Australians have no religion at all. Whereas most recent census shows that in the US is under 20%. Okay, so America is definitely much more religious. I can tell you in my neighborhood in Upper Marlboro, man, they have these big churches. It doesn't take much, and if you start venturing down south, you can really feel it even more. Now, this one thing is not really affecting me so far, because in this hotel, the Wi-Fi is actually really good. And Australia actually created Wi-Fi. So that is one of these countries' greatest achievement. But today, Australia is really far behind many other developed countries when it comes to the Wi-Fi speed. Australia has some of the slowest internet behind countries like even Romania, India, and many third world countries. There's apparently something political going on. I don't want to get into politics, but you know, Australia does not have really good Wi-Fi, even though they're the one that came up with it. So, but this hotel, I have to say, I haven't felt the difference. I've been able to, you know, upload these videos you guys are watching without an issue. Now let's talk about money and everything in between when it comes to retail and everything else. So before we get into that, this is what they call a thong in Australia. So that's a thong, you know. In the US, it's something completely different. So I thought that was funny. The one thing I really like about Australia is that the sales tax when you buy something is already included in the price. They call it GST. So you don't have to wonder. You know how in the US you go buy an item and then the cashier will scan it, and that's when you find out the final price? No such thing here in Australia. When you buy something, what you see is what you get. So they have the actual price of the item right there, and it includes the sales tax. So some people assume that there's no sales tax here. There is a sales tax, but it's included already in the price. And you know, that is the same. My understanding is it's the same throughout Australia, not just in Sydney. So the food coupon culture is also quite interesting. You know, like in your mailbox in the US, sometimes you get like these coupons from like different grocery stores around your neighborhood. You know, oh man, if I go to Safeway or Harris Teeter or a Giant, whatever grocery store you have, like you can get discount on like water, ice cream, meat. Sometimes the steak is on sale this week, the chicken is on sale. It's not like that. They do have sales in the stores, but they don't really have that coupon culture like there is one in the US. It's quite different here. So they have a book that they call the entertainment book. And that book actually has coupons, and my understanding is you have to pay for it. So coupons are not really a thing here. They also have no tipping culture. So people are paid a living wage. You don't have to worry about tipping anybody. The one thing I noticed right away when I touched my first Australian dollar is the way it felt in my hand. It's made out of synthetic material called polymer, and it's resistant to moisture and dirt. So the US and many other countries usually use cotton fiber paper for the currency. In Australia, this synthetic material makes it so you can actually get your currency wet and you don't destroy your actual banknote, right? So, you know, you can clean it, no problem. You know, the Australian dollar is, it's a good invention. So, you know, dollars are known to be dirty. The Australian dollar is cleaner, you know, and it's waterproof. I should mention that. So according to the World Bank, the United States has the world's largest economy, and Australia is the 12th. They are behind countries like China, Japan, Germany, India, the United Kingdom, France, Russia, Canada, Italy, and Brazil. Then you have Australia. If you disagree with this list, I didn't come up with it. This is straight from the World Bank, okay? So let me know in the comments below how you feel, but that's basically what it is when it comes to the GDP. They are number 12 right now. But despite being number 12 in the GDP among the nations in the world, Australia minimum wage is about $15 an hour. 23 Australian, 15 an hour for adults that are aged 21 and up. So it comes up to about $2,300 a month. That's the minimum wage in Australia. So an added bonus to Australia is that they have gotten rid of the penny. Okay, the last one was minted, I think it says 1964. So here prices around it. It makes things a lot easier when you're buying things that you don't have to worry about having this unnecessary, coins and change. They do have coins, but the penny is basically a thing of the past. Starbucks, let's talk about coffee. One of I believe the most successful coffee chain in the US is Starbucks coffee. Well, they had a really rough time in Australia. They do exist, but it's definitely not the go-to for Australians, and it's certainly not the most popular here. And there's less and less of them. So apparently they were very aggressive when they came in the country and opened all these chains, and they thought they're gonna run the place, but they misunderstood the coffee culture in Australia, and as a result, they are basically gone out of here. So Australians are very picky coffee drinkers. So if you thought Americans were picky coffee drinkers, come and take a look at Australians, man. They don't play with the coffee shops out here. They love the coffee. They love good coffee. All right. I'm not saying Americans don't, but the most popular chain we have is Starbucks, and apparently, and here I can tell you, the coffee I've had is much better than Starbucks coffee. So definitely shout out to Australia when it comes to that. And another thing, I had this discussion with people regarding eggs, because I've noticed, white eggs are cheaper than brown eggs. Are they healthier for you? I don't know. Let me know, guys. What do you guys think? Do you think brown eggs are healthier because they're, more expensive, or what's really going on between brown eggs and white eggs? When I go to the store here, I haven't seen white eggs yet. Maybe they are somewhere, but mostly you will find brown eggs. Whereas in American grocery stores, you generally will see white eggs and brown eggs. Here, brown eggs are much more popular. So let me know in the comments below if you think they're healthier. I don't know. It seems like there's different schools of thoughts when it comes to the differences between brown and white eggs. And since we're on the subject of food, let's talk about calorie count. So if you are one of those people that count your calories when you eat, or you always check the back of whatever you're buying to know how many calories are in there, when you come to Australia, be aware that they don't use calories as a measure here. They are using kilojoules, okay? So good luck converting your kilojoules into calories. I will let you guys figure that one out. Both countries have Target and Kmart, but Kmart is basically dead in the States, but it's pretty much alive here in Australia still. They still shop at Kmart, and there's quite a few of them. When you go eat something like a burger, and if you ask for ketchup, what they will give you is tomato sauce. With my taste buds, there's a difference, I don't know, but I feel like there's a difference. Maybe some of you guys who've traveled to Australia can tell me. Some Australians can tell me what the difference is for you guys, but for me, I definitely felt it. Ketchup is not really a thing here. I haven't seen it, and I've asked in 2 different places that didn't have it. So, definitely ketchup, not very popular. They think tomato sauce is ketchup, but I don't think it is. There's a difference in the taste. So maybe next time I come to Australia, I'll pack up my own little bottle of ketchup. Because guys, the taste is quite different, man. The taste is quite different. Another thing, I don't drink these beers, but they sold in the US. You remember the Foster beer? They usually come in these big cans, and it says famous Australian beer. Well, guess what? Australians don't drink it. Apparently they used to, and then they basically told the whole world, hold my beer, and never came back to get it, because there's not a thing here. Australians do not drink Foster beer. I don't know when they stopped, but right now, it's not a thing that they do drink. They have much better beers here. So it's not even owned by Australia anymore. My understanding, I think it's like a Chinese company now that owns it or something. It's still something that Americans do consume, also in the UK, but in Australia, Foster, not a thing at all. When you go pump your gas in America, you have to pay first and then you pump your gas. Or you have to go ahead and put your card and then you stop pumping. And when you stop pumping your gas, then you can go ahead and drop off. They have the trust system here, which is similar than the trust system used in Europe. So you basically pump your gas first, and after you're done pumping your gas, then you go ahead and pay for it. I don't think this will work in the US. Man, I don't think this will work in the US at all, man. I don't think this will work. People will just pump and take off. So something we take for granted in the States is the convenience of shopping. You can pop up after work. Most of the time your store will be open. They stay up pretty late, like 9-10 o'clock at grocery stores. Sometimes even to midnight you can still in some areas. Well, here in Australia, except Thursdays, I don't know why they chose Thursday. I should investigate that. But Thursday is the latest day as far as like opening hours. Most of the time, man, they close at like 6. So good luck shopping after work. It's very tough to do here, shopping after. And it's the same thing in Europe, they just closed earlier. So shout out to the States, man. We really have, convenience when it comes to shopping. And it's not something to be taken for granted. Now, my first video didn't cover this, but the driver that a lot of people have commented about, we drove around for like 30 minutes looking for this hotel. Many bars in Australia also have hotel in the name. So just because you're looking for a hotel doesn't mean you're going to find an actual hotel. You got to be careful about that. Sometimes it can be a bar. I don't know if these specific bars used to have accommodations as well, but it's not uncommon to see a bar in Australia that is also something, whatever, ABC hotel, but it's actually not a hotel, it's a bar. So keep that in mind when you come to Australia. And now when you find your hotel, the thing that we also take for granted, every hotel that I can remember I stayed in the US had ice machines on every single floor. You have your little bucket with your little plastic bag, you shove it in there, you go outside, you get your ice. Well, this is something that we take for granted also. It is not really a thing here in Australia. I've asked here, you can get ice. I'm not saying you cannot get ice, so don't be killing me in the comments. You can get ice in Australia, but you have to call generally room service, okay? I haven't been to every single hotel, of course, so I can't speak for all the entire chains, but when I spoke to a lady downstairs, she told me basically that most Australian hotels do not have ice machines on every floor. You have to call. So this is something that they are basically getting rid of. Because they said the refrigerator, you can open, your drinks are cold already, so the need for ice is actually not really there anymore. I don't know about you guys, but when I travel, I bring myself a bottle and I like to go out and get my ice and I put the bottle in the bucket and I'm all set, man. And I actually try to stay away from this fridge inside the hotel because they will charge you 3-4 times of the price than if you bring your own bottles. So, here's the thing, ice machines in the hotels in Australia, even if it's an American chain. So if you stay at like something like a Hyatt or a Hilton or something in Australia, they would not have necessarily, don't expect them to have this ice machine on every floor. They won't. So cursing here is also a very common thing. So if you step out, man, you hear people use, they curse. It's the culture, and they do it in front of kids too. The moment the kids knows what the B word is or F word or whatever, they even use the C word here. I won't even pronounce it for this video. The C word here is also used, but it has a different meaning. It has a different, they say it depends on the context, I don't know in any context in America where the C word is okay to use, except if you're trying to really insult someone. But here, they use them gracefully here. Oh, man. All right. So in a nutshell, that's what it is. You guys already know American. I think most of you guys know that American football is the most popular sport in the U.S. And also, I think one of the most, if not the most lucrative, right behind baseball. As you know, Australia, the British heritage is much stronger here than in the United States. In Australia, the main sport is cricket and rugby. Okay, that's the two main sport here in Australia. So the cultural hangover remains strong in regards to cricket, which is also a very popular sport in England. So these are some of the main differences I wanted to bring to your attention here, guys. The United States and Australia are very similar, but are also quite different. So another thing I want to point out, I checked the Australian Bureau of Statistics and I checked the US Census, and it shows that more US born citizens are moving into Australia than Australian born citizens moving into the United States. So both countries are amazing, they are quite different. And I definitely recommend, if you are thinking about coming to Australia, make sure you just get your pocket ready, because this country is expensive. It feels like, and I believe it is, more expensive than the United States. So, but the quality of life is definitely up there. And one country that a lot of Americans enjoy coming, visiting, and staying. So I can't recommend it enough, especially now that they have made the process a lot easier, you know, to come into Australia. You know, if you were thinking about coming here, definitely, you know, do that. This is an amazing country, and I cannot recommend it enough. So anyways, guys, this is it for now. Thank you for watching. If it's your first time on my channel, kindly hit that like button, subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. Peace, mate.